What led to the recent Hamas attack on Israel? This is the burning question that many of us are grappling with in an attempt to understand the complex dynamics that govern the persistently tumultuous Middle East. This region, brimming with rich history and diverse cultures, is also unfortunately the stage for seemingly unending conflicts that have continued for decades, if not centuries. It all started with a surprise attack launched by Hamas, the Palestinian militant group controlling the Gaza Strip. This group, founded in the late 20th century, has since its inception been a significant player in the region's many power struggles, primarily against Israel. The group's origins, ideologies, and motivations are intricacies in themselves, contributing significantly to the intricacy of the situation at hand. The attack was not an isolated incident. It was an intense barrage of thousands of rockets fired with intent and strategy. These rockets infiltrated Israeli towns and army bases, striking fear into the hearts of the inhabitants and soldiers stationed there. The sheer number of rockets and the scale of the attack was unprecedented, marking a new chapter in the ongoing saga of violence in this region. The sights of these rockets lighting up the night sky is a grim reminder of the region's volatility. The attack triggered an immediate and swift response from Israel in the form of airstrikes. Israel, a nation known for its military might and technological prowess, retaliated with the force and precision that has become synonymous with its defense strategy. The airstrikes targeted key Hamas installations and locations, causing considerable damage and escalating the conflict to a new level. But this chain of events didn't just randomly occur. It was a culmination of simmering tensions, grievances, and frustrations that had been building over time. Roots in a series of preceding actions and reactions, acts of aggression and retaliation, policy decisions and political maneuvers, all of which have contributed to the current situation. Israel's occupation of the West Bank has long been a bone of contention, fueling resentment and resistance among Palestinians. This territory, once home to a thriving Palestinian community, has become a hotbed of conflict and struggle. The occupation, seen by many as illegal and unjust, has engendered feelings of anger, helplessness, and desperation among the Palestinians. Added to this volatile mix are the recent Israeli police raids on the Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, one of the holiest sites in Islam. These raids, seen as a blatant disregard for the sanctity and significance of the mosque, have incensed Muslims worldwide. The images of the raids, widely circulated on social media, have only amplified the sense of outrage and indignation. Furthermore, the detention of Palestinians in Israeli jails has been a long-standing issue. Human rights groups and international organizations have repeatedly raised concerns about the treatment of Palestinian detainees, including allegations of torture and abuse. These detentions, often carried out without due process, have fueled further resentment and frustration among Palestinians. The resulting mix is a potent concoction of anger, frustration, and desperation, ready to explode at any given moment. A powder keg waiting for the right spark. And that spark came in the form of the Hamas attack, a direct result of the conditions and circumstances that have been brewing for years, if not decades. The timing of the assault was far from coincidental. It occurred during a period of internal crisis in Israel. This timing may have been strategic, an attempt by Hamas to exploit the vulnerabilities of a nation in turmoil. The internal crisis in Israel, by political instability and social unrest, may have presented an opportune moment for Hamas to strike. It's a classic example of how external conflicts can often be exacerbated by internal challenges. This calculated move by Hamas has added another layer of complexity to an already complex situation. Behind all of this, the question remains, what's next for the region? As we dive deeper into the intricacies of this conflict, we are reminded of the numerous lives affected, the hopes dashed and dreams shattered. The future may seem uncertain, but one thing is clear. The path to peace and stability in the Middle East is a long and arduous one. The timing of the assault was far from coincidental. It occurred during a period of internal crisis in Israel. This timing may have been strategic, an attempt by Hamas to exploit the vulnerabilities of a nation in turmoil. World leaders were quick to react. In the midst of the unfolding conflict, various reactions rippled across the globe. One such response was from President Biden, who has traditionally been seen as a staunch ally of the Jewish state. He made a clear, unequivocal statement, condemning the actions of Hamas, a stance that resonated with the long-standing American policy. His words reflected the prevailing sentiment in Washington, D.C., with the president expressing firm support for Israel's indisputable right to safeguard its territory and its people. This stance from the Oval Office, however, was not mirrored universally. Within the vast and diverse international community, a wide spectrum of views could be found. There were those who stood alongside President Biden, echoing his sentiments and supporting Israel's actions. On the other hand, there were others who questioned both the proportionality of Israel's response and the underlying causes behind the escalating violence. This divergence in perspectives is not surprising, given the intricate and complex history of Israel-Palestine relations. The situation is a conundrum, one that has long perplexed diplomats, political analysts, and leaders worldwide. Moreover, the responses were not confined to political circles. They reverberated amongst various communities, one of them being the American Jews. This demographic has historically rallied behind Israel during times of expressing their support and solidarity. They have held rallies, vigils, and fundraising events, all with the aim of backing Israel. This, however, was not the case this time. The voices that were once loud and clear were now more muted. The energy that once pulsated through their rallies was now replaced with a palpable sense of unease. This shift can be attributed to a myriad of factors, one of them being the divisive roles played by former President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump, with his unorthodox style of diplomacy, and Netanyahu, with his hardline stance, have accelerated a sense of estrangement among American Jews. The dissonance between the American Jewish community and the political actions and rhetoric of these two leaders has led to a widening gap. This has resulted in a shift in the political landscape, with greater scrutiny of Israeli policies and a growing push for a more balanced approach towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This divide, which has been widening over the years, has made it increasingly difficult for Israel to garner bipartisan support. The once unquestioned backing has been replaced by a more nuanced discourse, reflecting a change in attitudes towards the Middle East. The challenge for the future, therefore, lies in bridging this divide, in finding a middle ground that respects the rights and aspirations of both Israelis and Palestinians. Thus, the unfolding crisis and its reactions are a reminder of the convoluted geopolitics of the region, a reflection of the challenges in achieving a peaceful resolution, and the significance of fostering understanding and empathy amidst conflict. The divisive roles played by former President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have accelerated a sense of estrangement among American Jews, creating a divide that has made it difficult for Israel to garner bipartisan support. Adding fuel to the fire, an Israeli airstrike destroyed a building in Gaza housing offices of news outlets, including Al Jazeera. This event sent shockwaves across the world, with people from every corner of the globe adapting their gaze towards this hotbed of tension. The destruction of the building was sudden, and the shock was palpable in the eyes of the onlookers, unable to comprehend the magnitude of the destruction. It was a horrifying spectacle, a display of violence that resonated deeply within spectators' hearts. This building, an edifice that was once a beacon of journalistic integrity, was reduced to a pile of rubble within seconds. The offices housed multiple news outlets, each providing an essential service to the world by reporting on the crises happening within Gaza. Among them was Al Jazeera, a significant player in the world of international journalism, whose objective reporting has often shed light on the world's most pressing issues. The Israel Defense Forces, the main group behind this operation, justified their actions by claiming that the building contained Hamas military intelligence assets. This statement, however, was met with skepticism and disbelief. Even though the defense forces have the responsibility of defending their nation, their claim raises serious concerns about the validity and ethics of their actions. Can the potential presence of a military asset justify the destruction of a building primarily used for journalistic purposes? In the wake of the operation, various debates surged, questioning the balance between military necessity and respect. The destruction of a building filled with journalists who risked their lives daily to inform the public was a grave shock to the world. It raised questions about the safeguarding of press freedom and the journalists' safety in regions of conflict. There were international voices expressing their concerns, questioning whether the media outlets were collateral damage or intentional targets. Concerns about press freedom are not new, but when such a visual and tangible act of aggression is committed against a journalistic establishment, it brings these concerns to the forefront. It serves as a stark reminder of the threat that journalists face in conflict zones, not just from the inherent dangers of war, but from targeted operations that could potentially jeopardize their safety. How safe are the other news bureaus in Gaza, given this precedent? The implications of this event are far-reaching. It not only disrupts the media landscape, but also shakes the trust of citizens who rely heavily on these news outlets for unfiltered information. The incident has undoubtedly cast a shadow of uncertainty over other news bureaus in Gaza. Are they next? Will they be able to continue carrying out their duty of informing the world about the happenings in this conflict-ridden region? Or will they have to pay the price for being an objective observer located in a volatile zone? These are the questions that the global community grapples with as they try to make sense of this unprecedented event. The destruction of a media building in Gaza is a stark reminder of the fragility of press freedom. It underscores the necessity of safeguarding the rights of news outlets to report without fear of retaliation, especially in locations fraught with conflict and violence. This incident is not just about one building. It represents a larger issue that touches the core of press freedom, journalistic integrity, and the safety of journalists working in conflict zones. As discussions continue and debates rage on, it is clear that the incident has left an indelible mark on the history of press freedom, an accusation that has raised concerns about press freedom and the safety of other news bureaus in Gaza. The Israeli airstrike that destroyed a building housing news outlets, including Al Jazeera, is a grim example of the challenges faced by the free press in conflict zones. It is a stark reminder of the necessity to protect press freedom and the safety of journalists, even amidst the chaos of war. In summary, the recent attack by Hamas on Israel was a culmination of a series of events and escalating tensions that have been brewing for a while now. It's crucial to remember that this was far from an isolated incident. It was the boiling point, an explosive manifestation of years-long friction, a pivotal moment in a cycle of violence that has been plaguing this region for generations. The roots of this conflict are deep. They stretch back to the formative years of the nations involved, intertwined with the intricate socio-political fabric of the region. The occupation of the West Bank by Israel, a crux of tensions and a point of contention, was not just a geopolitical maneuver. It was an encroachment on the Palestinians' land, a blow to their sovereignty, a continual reminder of their forcibly changed lifestyle Israeli control. Additionally, the Aqsa Mosque raids were not just an infringement on the Palestinians' religious rights but a direct attack on their identity and sense of peace. The Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest sites in Islam, is a symbol of Palestinian identity and defiance. By raiding this mosque, Israel was not just exerting its power, but poking at a raw nerve, a wound that has been festering for decades. The detention of Palestinians by Israeli authorities further fueled the flames of this conflict. Each detention was a graphic display of power dynamics, a representation of the imbalance that exists between the two nations. Every story of a Palestinian detained is a tale of human rights violations, of families torn apart, of lives disrupted, and dreams shattered. The internal crisis in Israel added another layer to this already complex situation. With the political system in turmoil and the public divide widening, Israel's internal struggles mirrored the external ones. The inability to form a stable government, the corruption scandals, and the public's growing disillusionment were all ingredients in this volatile mix. The international community's response to this conflict was met with mixed reactions. Some nations decried the violence, others pledged their unyielding support to Israel, while numerous took a more balanced approach, advocating for peace and a two-state solution. The shifting dynamics of world politics and alliances also played a crucial role in shaping the international response. The changing stance of American Jews towards this conflict introduced another aspect to this multifaceted issue. For years, the American Jewish community has been a staunch supporter of Israel. But as the conflict intensifies and the human rights violations become hard to ignore, a shift in their perspective has been observed. A greater focus on peace, justice, and a two-state solution is now evident in their dialogue. The concerns about press freedom in the conflict zone are also worth noting. Reports of journalists being targeted, media offices being bombed, and the overall restriction on reporting the truth paint a grim picture. This has raised many questions about the transparency and accountability in reporting the conflict, further complicating the understanding of the situation. Understanding these complexities is the first step towards finding a solution to this enduring conflict. It's about acknowledging the deeply entrenched problems, respecting the narratives of the people involved, and working towards a solution that ensures justice, peace, and coexistence for all. It's not just about settling a territorial dispute, but healing the wounds of history and building a future of harmony.